So I just need to
practice, man. Let's keep practicing French.
Yeah, my tongue is still Hollywood, and French is like so it's kind of the muscles need to readjust,
you gotta learn how to pout.
What's pouting?
Like this.
The attitude, yeah.
Oh yeah. True.
Welcome to Bitcoin Basics with your hosts Faris and Gordon. Visit bitcoinbasics.help if you need help buying and securing your Bitcoin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin Basics podcast. Today's date is the 3rd of October. The price of Bitcoin is $19,202. You will get 5,200 Satoshis per dollar. And the block height, we are sitting at 756,778. So for today's episode, unfortunately, Gordon couldn't join us simply because it was unfeasible due to the time zones of this recording. We had 3 time zones to factor in. I spoke to 2 guests today. That's Sooly and Bam, and we'll link in their Twitter profiles. You can follow them. I actually came across Basim, or Bam as he goes by, on one of our Twitter followers, and he has been working, he's an engineer, has been working in Bitcoin, and he recommended that I have a chat with Sooly as well. So both these guys are actually working with Bitcoin in the Middle East and Africa. This was a really special episode for me because that's where I grew up in North Africa. A lot of my cultural roots are there. And just talking about Bitcoin adoption in this region, I'm very surprised that Bitcoin has not been more widely accepted and adopted there. But talking to them, you can see the reasons why. It was a really fun conversation for me. It was actually quite nostalgic as well. And this is a story that I want to keep following, is Bitcoin adoption in that part of the world. So without further ado, I'm just going to launch in and we'll have this conversation with Bam and Sooly.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share so we can find others like yourself.
Yeah, hi. I just heard from Bam about you and the podcast, and wherever there's an opportunity to talk about Bitcoin, I welcome it. But I'd like to get to know you a bit better, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Now we're doing the interview.
Sorry. No, it's fine. So yeah, it's not often I'm on this side. So my name's Faris. I was born in Cairo. First 16 years of my life were spread across North Africa. Went to Arabic primary schools, French private schools. Didn't actually study in English until I was 16. Did my last 2 years of school in America. After that, moved to Australia for university. That's actually where I met my co-host Gordon. Now, I'm sorry he can't join us. It's a bit early for him. It's 5 a.m. where he is. I thought some of this might be in Arabic anyway. So, so I started working in the NGO sector. I did some work with Jimmy Carter Center, Red Cross, Oxfam, bounced around in the NGO sector. Then moved into some teaching. I taught international relations. And on weekends, I'd always go to investment seminars because the aid sector, NGO sector, you're helping other people out, but doesn't really, feed your family. You're feeding other families, but not your own. So I was always a bit of an investment addict. And Gordon, I remember telling me about Bitcoin, and at the time I had young kids and just did not have the bandwidth to absorb something new. And he was excited about the tech, and I just did not have it in me to go, okay, this is something I can delve into. 2016, I was listening to an interview, actually with Raoul Pal, who we've had on the show, and he was talking about the economic aspects of Bitcoin. And that's when I thought, okay, this I can understand the economics behind it. So I started delving in a lot deeper, following the work of Tour de Meester, Trace Mayer, Tony Vase. I was spending 3 to 4 hours a day just learning about Bitcoin. And then where I live, everyone kind of referred to me as a Bitcoin guy. Go to Faris, he'll tell you about Bitcoin. So I contacted Gordon. So what do you think of a business where we, educate people about Bitcoin and help them buy it? Because people are like, how do I buy this thing? Well, how do I get in? What do I do? So he's like, actually, I was just about to call you with the same idea. So we've been working, we were going to run workshops. We'll come for a weekend, day one, learn about Bitcoin. We explain the tech, the economic fundamentals behind it. We've run some of these online. We've done some guest speaking spots. Half of what we do is explaining the gold standard and the fiat standard. Actually, a lot of it's covered in Saifuddin's book. And then the second day is basically sit down with people, have your computer, your phone, and we show you how to buy your Bitcoins and move them into a cold storage device. That was a plan. And then the lockdowns happened. We couldn't do physical workshops. So we moved into the podcast. And the premise of the podcast is let's try and explain Bitcoin simply to people, because people in this space, in the Bitcoin space, who have been in here for, more than 4 or 5 years, they're, adopting the Lightning Network. They're talking about Bitcoin bonds. They're talking about, liquid, all this new stuff. Whereas average people still think, I can't afford to buy one whole Bitcoin, so I'll get Bitcoin Cash or I'll get Ripple. So there's this huge knowledge gap. And for us, we're targeting people that I think I want to buy Bitcoin. How do I do it? And, not, okay, let's set up your own node and your own miner. That comes later. But for now, people taking the first step in, I look at it as our audiences of people, first week at university. You're not expecting them to write a thesis. You're just giving them the foundations, the groundwork.
Nice. You're talking to someone who spent 15, 16 years in the humanitarian international NGO sector, from the UN agencies, etc. Worked with Oxfam implemented projects for Oxfam, etc. And moving to the fiat world, and discovering Bitcoin and discovering. Anyway, so nice to relate, man. A lot. I have so much good memories of Australia as well. So it's really, really nice to connect.
You said you just learned English. You learned English when you were 16?
My mother's Australian, so we grew up speaking it in the house, but I didn't have any formal education in English until I was 16.
So you were speaking Arabic?
Yeah, a combination of Arabic and French. So my mother tongue, depending on the time in my life, my mother tongue changed. So I went to public Arabic schools in Morocco until I was 12. And then I went to French schools in Egypt. So from up until the age of 12, I was actually educated in Arabic. We did French once, 1 hour a week. And then I went to Cairo, where I moved to a French lycée there. So from 12 till 16, I was trained in French. And then, English from 16 onwards.
Spent most of my childhood in a French lycée as well.
Sorry?
Faris, I spent most of my childhood in a French lycée as well in Lebanon.
No,
you survived. Arabic?
My Arabic is شوية. So المشكلة مع العربي أنا أبوي سوري أنا عايش في المغرب عايش في القاهرة العربي بتاعي يعني كل شيء. So sorry for those of you who don't speak Arabic. So Arabic is different in every country you go to. Kind of like English, you can't say English is the same in Scotland, South Africa, Australia, and America. And my Arabic is a combination of all the places I lived in. So when you're speaking to someone in Arabic, they can pick up where you are from, just like you can understand someone's accent if they're speaking in English. Whereas people kind of stare blankly at me, go, man, where are you from?
Yeah, no, but I can understand what you're saying. Like that's it's impressive that I can still understand each and every word that you're saying. It's not like vague or anything.
Shukran. Yeah, it's quite funny. When I was in Beirut probably 10 years ago, and I hadn't been to the Middle East in quite some time, and I thought, my Arabic's terrible. I could only understand 50% of what was going on. But when I went to Cairo the next week, I was at 80%. And I found the Lebanese Arabic is very much like the French. Speaking French is talk fast, and And with the French, if you don't speak our language perfectly, then please don't. I found the Lebanese were very much like that with the Arabic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling here in France. I mean, I grew up in the UAE, spent most of my life in Abu Dhabi, and I lived in Turkey also. But when I came to France, I'm struggling so much right now with the French language because Arabic language usually we use our tongue. It's kind of a hard language, whereas French is kind of melodic, and there's a lot of vowels, and you don't know where the word is like finished and when the next word is starting. They're all kind of connected. That's what I feel. So I just need to
practice, man. Let's keep practicing French.
Yeah, my tongue is still Hollywood, and French is like so it's kind of the muscles need to readjust, you know.
You got to learn how to pout.
What's pouting?
Like this.
The attitude, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Ben, let me start with you. So I actually reached out to you on Twitter I had not thought of doing this before. I jumped onto our Twitter.
LinkedIn. On LinkedIn.
I think I came across you on Twitter to begin with. Because I was going through our Twitter followers and I was just wanting to say, who's following us? And because we kind of, I just want to reach out and see who's in the same network. And so just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got on to our podcast and your Bitcoin journey, if you don't mind. And again, just don't dox yourself if you don't want to.
Yeah, sure. No. So I'm an engineer. Well, first of all, I'm from Syria, and I grew up in Syria until my maybe third year at school, elementary school. I went to the UAE. We moved. All of my family moved to Abu Dhabi, and we lived there for 15 years, 16 years. Like we spent a lot of time in the UAE. That's where I learned English. That's where I got introduced to a lot of Western friends, and changed my culture a lot. So after maybe when I graduated in high school, I went to Turkey. I studied energy engineering, energy systems at one of Istanbul's universities, and I had a lot of fun in Istanbul for about 4 or 5 years, until the political turmoil started, to appear, with the coup and with the whole, all of that stuff coming from Syria, Iraq, and there was a lot of conflict in that region. So then I went to France, and I'm based right now in France, and I have my small company, small business. I'm kind of an entrepreneur. But I am an engineer. I got introduced to Bitcoin when I was in UAE. I was studying in high school, but I was an entrepreneur, and I wanted to start receiving money somehow through the internet. I just wanted to do that. I didn't know how to, and there was no PayPal. I didn't have a bank account, and even if you have, it's kind of hard because I'm Syrian, and Arabic nationalities they don't pass the verification process, especially Syrians. And so I got introduced to Bitcoin. I just read about it when I think 2012, 2013. I did not understand shit. I did not understand how because there was no material. There was only there's this network of money, and then it's protected by math. That's what I read. And I said, okay, if there's just algorithms and stuff, it might get hacked or something. So I didn't dive deep into it until maybe in a year or two, I heard again about Bitcoin when Mt. Gox exchange got hacked, and I was like, thank God, I didn't invest in this thing. It's all a scam and stuff. And then maybe 2 years later, I read about it again, and what caught my I was thinking about, since I'm an energy engineer, I was thinking about, like, why aren't we using energy as our currency? That was kind of my graduation project. Like, I wanted to do something like research in that idea, and so I started looking for resources on, did anybody think of this before? Like, maybe we can use like batteries, some kind of batteries that we can like, it was so stupid, but I just had like we need to use energy because energy is the most fundamental thing of value in the universe, really. And I find out that there are people who are working on that, and his name is Satoshi Nakamoto. And I Google Satoshi Nakamoto, and I find this, like, I don't know, Asian looking person. That was very confusing. And then I get into, again, Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, what is Bitcoin? Who's the CEO of Bitcoin? Because I keep going back to the same thing. Every time I go into a problem, I come to the same solution, which is Bitcoin. And then I saw on Wikipedia just the word decentralized. It was the first time I read it in English, decentralized. I was like, okay, centralized is like, there's one point, and then decentralized. Oh, okay. So this is why I couldn't find the CEO. I was looking for the CEO for a long time. And once I read that, I was like, okay, that's it. This thing is not just a regular thing. This is like BitTorrent. This is a new internet protocol. I immediately, when I read the word decentralized, I was like, I need to dive really deep into it and to understand how it works. I used it. I downloaded a wallet and started transacting in Bitcoin. I think that was back in 2016, maybe 2015, 16. Then I graduated, and when I graduated, I was like, I don't want to study masters. Again, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do something new. I really want to understand this system. And so I didn't study masters. I went to research Bitcoin. Like, that was my whole thing. It was Bitcoin and then blockchain technology. That's where I ventured into the other systems, the other coins. And I'm like, okay, we made money decentralized. Can we make everything decentralized? And so I started my altcoin journey, studying Ethereum and blockchains, private blockchains, public ones, reading about DeFi, all of that. Started getting into smart contracts, trying to understand how Ethereum works. But little by little, I started meeting Bitcoiners. I didn't, like, the whole time, maybe 6-7 years or something, I was just alone with YouTube, and so I didn't meet with anyone who was interested in the same topics as I. And so when Clubhouse in 2000 and maybe 2020 or 2021, I don't remember, I started meeting with the Bitcoin maximalists for the first time and getting introduced to all of these geniuses and getting to know Bitcoin really deeply. And then I was like, okay, what about the other stuff? And I saw like a lot of energy against the other stuff, against blockchain, against crypto. And I was like, why? What is going on here? And luckily, I met with Sooly and other Arabic Bitcoiners who they were much nicer than the American maximalists and the Western maximalists. So they were much more open to explaining, the basics, why Bitcoin and not the other shit, basically. And so, that's my journey. Maybe like 2 years ago, I was full on Bitcoin, like just Bitcoin, and how can I build Bitcoin? And Bitcoin is the future. And how can we bring Bitcoin to the Middle East? Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now.
No, thank you very much, Bam. I will ask you guys both actually about Bitcoin adoption in the Middle East. But Sooly, do you mind giving us a bit of background as to your journey?
Sure. So I'm Sooly. I'm Lebanese, born and raised. Moved to Europe for my fiat job. And my fiat job has been taking me a bit between Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, meeting different sorts of industries, sectors, etc. And then basically I moved to Europe like 8 years ago, and I was been constantly roving around these 3 continents. I was always a tech nerd. I demounted my first PC. I was 7 years old, and I did study some computer science back in UD, then shifted to business. And then I heard about Bitcoin in 2014. A friend of mine I remember that night, I saw him like last month in Lebanon. I told him, do you remember 2014 when you told me about like, go check Bitcoin? I said, yes, I never did. And then 2016, I started trading traditional financial markets just as a hobby on the side, just like testing the waters, practicing, learning, took some like technical analysis courses and trying to live the trader's kind of zone, which was very unhealthy on a personal level, like trying to keep up with time for you to sleep enough, to have social time proper for your family, your friends, for yourself. Basically, you don't have a low time preference if you're trading at all. Okay. So, and I had no clue about what was like low time preference versus high time preference. And then 2017, I started like, Bitcoin started, popping up on the news and my like trading news, you know, I was like, okay, so this must be like, something to look into. And it was like not very difficult to pick up that there is like, a drop in a price. And back then it reached like, I don't know, it was much less than $5,000. I just put it just a little bit, and then it dropped again. So I was like, okay, I'm buying more. And back then I started hearing about the altcoins, if we can say shitcoins on your podcast or not, I don't know. I don't know if I didn't know the difference.
Gordon says it all the time, so don't worry.
Okay. I didn't know what it was. I dealt with it just like any other asset in the market, without knowing any fundamental about it. And then I noticed that everything is following Bitcoin in the crypto space, and whatever so-called crypto follows Bitcoin upwards and downwards. And then I was like, okay, I was managing my portfolio in a way where like I try to invest from my profit into new assets, or to weigh in further in some assets and exits from other assets. So I decided to, you know what, let me just exit from all these crypto, non-Bitcoin, and keep everything in Bitcoin, because it's like, okay, it's slower, but it's like I don't have to really keep up with these influencers on social media, etc. all the BS basically. And then 2019, I started getting more and more convinced, but not really deep enough. Corona hits. I meet a Lebanese Bitcoiner, Marco. Marco is the founder of the biggest Bitcoin educational community in Lebanon, and we start like challenging each other. He's like he had this toxicity that I didn't get first, but it was really interesting to me. Like, really, why Bitcoin and not anything else? Since Corona 2020, things got. I was a Bitcoin only guy, not from the fundamentals. So I started reading the books, spending, I don't know, I think I spent thousands of hours since diving in Bitcoin. Over time, I started trying to orange pill as many people as I know, and even people I encounter, and then got approached by Swan Bitcoin, started supporting their advisory for the Middle East and North Africa strategy. So I got to know amazing, brilliant people. And then started also like in parallel networking with Arabic Bitcoiners, BAM, Arabic HODL. There are a bunch of maxis now in the Arabic world trying to really connect and build some Arabic content, because back in the day, 2017, 2018, 2019, most of the content was in Western languages. There wasn't, if there was, it was only translated, and recently different Arab maxis are trying to contribute with more audiovisual podcasts, audio or videos, just like we're doing.
Thank you very much, guys. So I've just picked up a pen because there's a lot of things you guys have brought up I actually want to talk about. But thank you very much for this, your background. And yeah, I can relate where you guys are talking about, where you've been, where you lived. It's my history as well. So you help making me reminisce about some very good times in my life. You both mentioned Bitcoin maximalism. And in that same phrase, rudeness and toxics. And this is something that the community does get criticized for, just the toxicity for being Bitcoin only and the impatience for anyone who brings up an altcoin. Do you mind just talking about that a little bit more? Just, because all I do is I see it on Twitter, and that's, Twitter is not in real life, which people need to be reminded of, I think. But what were your personal journeys like when, you wanted to explore blockchain, altcoins, anything that wasn't Bitcoin? So just, do you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Maybe I'll start because I dove deep really into the technicals of how the other systems work. And the problem is that you have a lot of people who are technically minded, and they like the networks, the blockchain networks, and they don't really pay attention that much to the economics of it. And the economics is really important. Once I started reading the Bitcoin standard and knowing why hard money is something that is that solves a lot of problems, especially in the Middle East, especially in underprivileged communities. This is where I was like, okay, maybe the other stuff have some kind of value, utility value, but they don't have a monetary value. And so if I'm pitching these other altcoins and telling people, look, they might change something on the internet, they might do something. Yeah, they might do that, but the problem is that they won't have a lot of value. And the problem is that there's inflation, there's hyperinflation everywhere. And so we need to focus on that side of the equation as well, not just what, these technologies may or may not do. And I understand that some technologies offer privacy, for example. Other ones offer a way to transact in stable coins, maybe. And this is also good for underprivileged communities, maybe in Lebanon, in Syria. At the same time, the main message that people need to hear is the solution to inflation. And Bitcoin, the asset, solves that. And Bitcoin, the network, also Lightning Network, it solves a lot of our problems. And so I get why there are kind of toxic people. There's a multitude of reasons. If we may talk about maximalism, is something that I was against at first, because I don't like to be labeled. Because once people start labeling you as something, then it's easy to attack that label instead of attacking your arguments or analyzing your arguments. And so, but the problem is that there's a real use case, I think, for Bitcoin maximalism. There's a real case to be made, and I think Pete, I don't remember his last name. He's a journalist in Forbes. He wrote a lot about why maximalism is important and the definition of it. Basically, you need to preserve the code. You need to preserve Bitcoin. Okay. Bitcoin has this hard-coded set of rules that nobody should alter. And we shouldn't alter. If we would to ever change it, it should be with caution. And we should really know what we're doing and really calculate all of the consequences, the unintended consequences before making any changes, and move slowly. And this kind of culture is not present in any other cryptocurrency because they don't understand the economics of money. So that's one reason. The other, there are a lot of reasons also, but this is the main thing that people don't get when especially people from a technical background. They go like, why not just, it's code, let's change it. It's like, no, man, the human race is going to adopt one form of money for transferring value and to start trading with one another. And we need to all agree on these rules, and we can't change them. And it has to be immutable, and it has to be verifiable. The maximum supply of Bitcoin has to be known by everyone, and everyone has to run a node. The people in Syria needs to run Bitcoin, and the people in Sudan, they also need to have the opportunity to engage in, to participate in consensus, basically. And if we're not allowing them, because we want to build a programmable blockchain, then what are we doing here? Then we're building technology for the Western world, really. That's what I think. I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of things I should want to follow up on that. Thank you, Bam. Now, Sooly, what about your experience with Bitcoin maximalism? Have you come across it, or what challenges or benefits did that provide to you, and your thoughts on it?
So for the people listening for the first time, not hearing the term Bitcoin maximalism or toxic maximalists in Bitcoin, what is toxicity? In my opinion, toxicity is there are different points. I'd like I'm gonna mention them not in sequence, yet we need to look at life in general. For me, you can see either black or white, and some people see gray areas. Once you know that black is your color, you would be defending your color. Some other people who don't understand black or don't understand white might pick gray just for convenience. In Bitcoin, looking at anything, we should look at history. Everyone in Bitcoin trying to understand Bitcoin maximalism and Bitcoin fundamentals should look at the 2017 war on Bitcoin and the block size war on Bitcoin. If you own Bitcoin today, regardless if you're a maxi or not, and you see value in Bitcoin, that's thanks to the maximalists in 2017. That's thanks to the people who believe that Bitcoin should be protected, secure, just like Bam was saying. These are the people who were so toxic, made sure that 51% of the network did not give in to changing the protocol of Bitcoin. Thanks to them, Bitcoin has its value today. The same applies in everything. So, in my opinion, once you understand Bitcoin, you would become so protective over its fundamentals that you can pick two ways to orange pill someone. You can either have the moderate way, trying to onboard someone who's like explaining and like come forward explaining the whole story why Bitcoin. And you can choose the toxic way. The toxic way is you need to be like, it's only Bitcoin, and you shouldn't care about anything else. And if it's not Bitcoin, it's I'm not gonna really give you my time to explain. That's what I've seen on social media in 2020. I was like in panels and like sessions and rooms, talking to all different sort of people from different cultures. And I noticed there is a thin line for me. Like for me, I consider myself a maxi. I'm a rationalist until I face situations where I need to be toxic. Like there are people who just troll, man. It's like they want to market their own project. They want to market their own digital crypto project. And when you ask them fundamental questions about like, if your supply is unlimited, where's the value? If your validators on the network cost a lot of money to build and to become a validator, which means having a node, means it's not decentralized. And then that's another fundamental. A third fundamental is like, don't tell me, for example, that your project is decentralized when it's managed by a CEO or a marketing department or a foundation. Like, and okay, like I became like, and I think Bam and a lot of the Clubhouse people know how toxic and aggressive maybe I was, like really fiery at first. And that fire started to calm down because I started to realize toxicity should be used, but not from the beginning. For me, let them burn their toes and fingers playing around with everything non-Bitcoin. Everything like shitcoining is healthy for Bitcoin. Everyone dealing with shitcoins will eventually know why Bitcoin. So yeah, for me, I think that's my two sats on toxicity in brief, since we need to talk about other points as well.
No, I really appreciate that, guys. Sorry, go ahead, man.
I just want to say, like, I don't know who said that. I think Lynn or Gigi, they said you can't have a 21 million cap without toxicity. Okay. You can't have that hard money without toxicity. I don't think you can. I don't think you can have a censorship-resistant network without people defending that network and running the software and preserving the rules of the network. Yeah.
Sorry, just sorry, Faris. I need that just last point. Everyone should research and spend time in how the world monetary system is shifting towards. We're shifting to a centralized, programmable money run by central banks. If you don't know what it means, please look it up. And if you know what it means, you should know that if you value your own freedom, you should stand up for your freedom. And if you're okay, anyone like stepping on your freedom, good for you. I'm not like that. If someone's going to try to step on me, I'm going to be toxic. The same, and Bitcoin is freedom. So if you're okay with no one really stepping on freedom for you or your family or whoever you care about or for humanity, just look into Bitcoin. Like the thing is, I've seen the media and people and influencers from the crypto space consider Bitcoiners brainwashed, or like they think it's a conviction. It's not a conviction. It's science and math. And if you look into if you want to believe CNN and BBC and all the mainstream media, good for you and good luck to be free. But that's not the way. So, yeah.
No, this is resonating a lot with me, actually a lot with my experience. The 2017 scaling wars terrified me because no one really knew what was going to happen. And yeah, I remember not sleeping thinking, am I getting in this at the worst possible time when Bitcoin's going to die? But yeah, and So one thing I want to talk about is you both mentioned decentralization, and this is a key component of everything we teach here at Bitcoin Basics. And it's what we explain a lot. And it's when it was explained to me from a tech side, that's when I really appreciated Bitcoin. Recently, I looked at an article about crypto Bitcoin adoption, and the top 20 adoption countries, only one of them is North African and Middle Eastern. And I was surprised. I thought if you look at, currency devaluation that's happening in Turkey, that happened in Egypt a few years ago, but these places were ripe to look into Bitcoin. Culturally, so Middle Eastern culture, Islamic culture is, one of a monarchy, a king, and that is very much the figurehead of the country. Is decentralization maybe a gap or just something preventing people from trusting Bitcoin? It's like, like Bam said before, there's no CEO, there's no face on the money. I can't take faith in people I don't know. I need a figurehead. Do you think that's part of the culture, that why there's just no adoption to Bitcoin?
Yeah, if I may answer this, because this is very important, especially in Eastern communities, because we don't think in terms of the individual, we think in terms of the family, the family figure. It's like it's top down, it's not bottom up. Whereas in the West, it's individuality, it's bottom up. And so this is one of the things that I struggled with in explaining Bitcoin to people by telling them you will have individual sovereignty. It's like if you tell them about individuality, it's like you might sound a little bit egotistic or selfish. But if you tell them like Bitcoin is good for you and for your family and for your community and basically for your country or nation, then that message resonates with them much more. That's something that Western people don't really get it. It's like, who cares about family? It's like you need to protect yourself, basically, So, and I like how the technology of Bitcoin is kind of going into the multi-sig and community banks and fediments. These things are going to be used a lot, I think, in Eastern regions. And that's something also we are trying to experiment with when we are presenting our content. So basically, we start the podcast, if we want to talk about the Lightning Network, we say, okay, here's what the Lightning Network is and what it can do, how it works, and what are the benefits of the Lightning Network. And then here's how it can benefit us as a community, as Arabs, as people. And then here's how it can also benefit the individual. And then we end it by pitching policymakers and the people at the top, telling them we should build on Lightning, we should mine, for example. This is mining, what are the benefits of mining, and how you can do it. And then the legislatures need to basically unban it if it's banned, or legalize it, or not being hostile to mining. Okay, it's good for the grid, it's good for everyone. So this is our approach, was kind of bottom up and top down at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of working with family, and I never thought of that before, but as you mentioned, self-sovereignty, and that is the key word that we are now hearing, becoming a sovereign individual. Yeah, that would be such a discord in the Middle Eastern countries where the focus is on the family and the community. You say, I'm a sovereign individual.
I always mention the word national sovereignty and community sovereignty and family sovereignty more than individual sovereignty. Those things are all intertwined, kind of. When you, I like Thomas from Allah podcast. He's Lebanese Bitcoiner. He said, Bitcoin is Trojan horse for freedom and for individuality also. So, we can do that. We can say okay, it's good for the family, good for the nation. At the end of the day, people are gonna, this message is going to resonate with a lot of minds, and they're gonna start using Bitcoin, and they're gonna say, oh, well, I have my own wallet, just like I have my own profile on Facebook. that's the thing. All of the technologies that's being imported by the West is kind of individualistic. We have our own profiles. Each person has their own Instagram and stuff. It's kind of weird to witness, but when Eastern populations are faced with a Western technology, it sometimes brings a lot of problems. If you're not aware of the culture differences, then there might be some problems down the road.
Sorry, this is a term I'm familiar with and grew up with, but in your own words, Bam and Sooly, when you say the West, what are you guys talking about?
For me, I would say individuality. That's the word that pops in my head, individuality. And I love it. By the way, I'm not a collectivist. I don't like collectivism. I really, I like to treat people as individuals. I don't like to associate them with their groups. We all come from groups, but that's the way I look at people, and I enjoy that view of that perspective. Sorry.
The West for me is like all the West from Lebanon, which is like the west of the Mediterranean Sea, like Europe, from Europe to North America. It stops there because the eastern side is the east, basically. And it's funny because if you open the world map, Lebanon is almost just in the middle, so it makes sense, west and east for me. But just I'd like to add on the BAM's answer to your decentralization question, and when it comes in regards of the Middle East adoption. Today, there are multiple factors, and we need to differentiate between Bitcoin adoption and a Bitcoin standards adoption. Today, Bitcoin is being adopted in the world based on the need in different markets, different countries. So different individuals, depending where you are in the world, you would understand or find Bitcoin interesting based on your needs. In the Middle East is divided so much culturally, economically, politically, that each of the countries is perceiving Bitcoin differently. I'm going to talk about Lebanon, for example. Lebanon today, for example, in 2019, $1 was equivalent to 1,500 Lebanese pounds. Today, each dollar is equivalent to 38,900. In the 70s, $1 reached 2.5 liras, Lebanese pounds. Today in Lebanon, the country is in a crisis. Whoever doesn't know, like, the banks are bankrupt. There's enough problems that the Lebanese citizen is barely keeping up, surviving day to day, paying 2 electricity bills because he needs to have 2 generators. And if you can't afford a generator, each neighborhood has a generator, and you need to pay them money for your electricity because the government does not provide electricity. The same for water and all the basic necessities. With inflation, families are barely surviving. For businesses, the same. So Bitcoin today is being used as a medium of exchange somehow. If someone needs to transfer money and he cannot because his bank account is closed, he's doing so. Stable coins, unfortunately, are more adopted in the Middle East and in Africa. So in economic turmoils, the citizens were drawn to make transactions when you have a lack of foreign currency. They don't look for a store of value directly. They look for store of value, obviously, but it's the reflex is not to go to Bitcoin or ask about Bitcoin. Yet I know that millions of dollars were transacted over Bitcoin from Lebanon at the beginning of the turmoil since 2019. But if you see the adoption for other stablecoins, it's skyrocketing. There are businesses, agencies opening in Lebanon. You can have a stablecoin delivery to your house. Like an agent would come to you, would transfer you the stablecoin first, and then you pay him. That's the etiquette now. Like, it's really mind blowing how big it's becoming. The same in Turkey and other places in the world. Now, who are the organizations generating these reports about adoption? There are multiple reports. I've seen multiple, and each gives a different ranking. Sometimes I see Turkey in the ranking, sometimes not. Sometimes I see Lebanon, sometimes not. So again, it's not 100% yet. We're still at the beginning. This is one thing. There are two main factors as well. The geopolitical position of the Middle East is quite complex, right? So you have allies. They would be okay transacting between each other within a currency, but they don't want the rest to transact within the same currency. So this is an issue, which in my opinion is going to take ages to solve. I don't know. This is another topic to talk about. But the second point is Bitcoin halal or not? And this is a completely different topic where today, KSA, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, most of the people that are dealing with Bitcoin, they're mainly trading it as just another trading asset class. They're not looking at it as a currency. And the moment we hear that Bitcoin is officially halal by whoever is centralizing the decision, that, I think, in my opinion, the doors of adoption is going to be really skyrocketing. Big time.
Actually, sorry, I would just interrupt briefly. I want to come back to you, but Islamic financial law is something I wanted to talk about. But just for our audience, can you please explain halal?
Okay, this is not financial advice. I'm not like an Islamic finance advisor.
We have plenty of disclaimers on the show. Don't worry.
Okay.
Just the term halal. I'm sure people have seen it and they go, "Oh, it's related to food," but obviously it's more than that.
Yes. Yes. When it comes to halal and currencies, so it's, if you want to simplify it, and please, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, and I must maybe use the wrong analogies here, but I'm going to just try to keep it simple. Halal money is a money that is not staked. So basically, if you put your money in a bank and you get interest on it, just like you put your crypto on an exchange and you get staking interest on it, this is not halal. All right. So if you understand,
not halal meaning not allowed in Islam.
Yes,
it's forbidden.
Yes, right? yes.
Yeah, basically that means banned, forbidden.
Yes. Not okay. Not okay.
Yeah, it reminds me of an old joke. An American and a Saudi Arabian are talking, and the American says to Saudi Arabian, "You don't have freedom of speech in Saudi Arabia." The Saudi Arabian says, "What do you mean?" And the American says, "Well, I can stand at the gates of the White House and just yell out, President Trump is an idiot. I don't like him." The Saudi Arabian goes, "Of course you have freedom of speech. I can stand in front of King Saud's palace and yell, President Trump's an idiot. I don't like him."
That's a good one. So, but basically, halal is like nothing related to interest. When, like, it's without being biased in any way, and I don't consider myself a conservative Muslim as well. Bitcoin is the halal money currency that ever been in our hands, in the hands of humanity ever. And for that, there are different resources. You mentioned Saifuddin earlier, that you base your workshops. You use the gold standard, the Bitcoin standard book in your workshops. And the fiat standard, his second book, There's a part where he addresses this issue. Riba is the interest on money in Islamic finance, and there are a lot happening on this side when it comes to content. Is Bitcoin halal or not? On Twitter mainly, I have some threads as well. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why you don't see the Middle East adopting Bitcoin more today. In the Middle East, the UAE, if you go to Dubai, you can buy properties in Bitcoin. You can register a Bitcoin company in 24 hours, get residencies, open a bank account. So there is this sort of adoption you don't hear of. They're supporting this concept, but when it comes from a layer one monitoring, seeing how many Middle Easterns are owning Bitcoin, that's still lagging behind.
So yeah, and I think even Binance is setting up their main headquarters in Dubai. They're moving them from Singapore to Dubai, I think. But so is this, if you are seen as someone in the Middle East who is adopting Bitcoin, is this seen as you are turning your back on your culture? Is that part of that dichotomy, or is it how, if you were to say to someone, "I'll buy Bitcoin," are they seeing this as you are adopting Western values? Is that that's the kind of thinking I grew up with in the Middle East, but is that old thinking? Because for people who don't understand Islam, Middle Eastern culture, everything's tied together. I think in America, everywhere else, you can have your religion, you can have your finances, you can have your identity. 3 separate things. In the Middle East, everything's tied together. So could that be part of the problem? Is if you are going the Bitcoin, you are challenging everything of who you are.
Yeah, I would say there is no consensus around whether Bitcoin is completely halal or completely haram. So just to clarify, because these 2 words are very close together. Haram means forbidden with an R. Halal means it's allowed. And Bitcoin now is in a gray zone, where some theologists would say that it should be forbidden because there's no physical nature to it, not like gold or silver. But then again, the argument is that we're using paper money right now, and we're using ledgers, so it doesn't make any sense. And then the other side says, well, it's not just halal; it's like the most halal money that is ever invented, because nobody can meddle with it at all. It's easy to verify. It's easy to know how much the supply of it, the maximum supply. So it's different than gold. It's more halal than gold, better than gold. And so there isn't a lot of debate, I guess. Socially speaking, yes, if Bitcoin becomes halal, everyone is agreeing on that, then we would see, as Sooly just mentioned, like we would see a huge wave of investors just buying Bitcoin as property. However, right now, a lot of people are not sure about it. It depends on who you listen to, basically. And it depends on, do you think for yourself when you are making these decisions, or we call it tafakkur in Islam. Do you depend on a centralized authority like Azhar Mosque? I don't know what it's called. There's a religious authority in Egypt, and there is a religious authority in Saudi Arabia. So it really depends on the individual, on the family here. I see. Also, there's a difference between the approach that Middle Eastern countries that produce, that have oil, that have a lot of resources, and the approach that the countries that don't have a lot of resources and they depend on the IMF. Okay, so these countries, they fall into different categories, and the way that they approach Bitcoin might be sometimes hostile, sometimes welcoming. I think in Dubai, they are welcoming. They're welcoming Bitcoin, the asset. You can save in it, and they are welcoming innovation. Lightning Network right now is some projects. I think OpenNode is building in Bahrain, and there's another project that is being built right now with Lightning in Dubai. I don't remember its name, but so when it comes to fintech and technology, Dubai is leading the world in these domains, and I think they're going to welcome Bitcoin as a way to transfer value, but they don't want the full Bitcoin standard where you use Bitcoin to pay for goods immediate. Not like you are sending, for example, dirhams and then transferring them to Saudi Arabia. They will switch to riyals on Lightning. You get to send national currencies as fast as the internet, basically, and without fees. That strikes example of building on Bitcoin, and I think they like that. They like this idea of a new technology that is going to make people's lives easier. But when it comes to adopting the Bitcoin standard, where you use Bitcoin as a currency and as an asset, and you get rid of the dollar and get rid of the dirham, I don't think that's going to happen soon. Yeah.
Sorry, Sooly, you want to jump in?
Yes, about if Bitcoin is perceived as the West intervening. Back to your question about you saying that the Middle East is like when you have monarchs and things are tight. Yes, yet in the Middle East, for example, you have like not all the Middle East has royalties and monarchy systems. Yet today, there isn't quite an association between Bitcoin and the West. There is more of a association with Bitcoin and liberalism, and that's where the nuance is like. Obviously, Bitcoin is freedom, and governments wants to control more control via central banks. Talking about Lebanon, the biggest Ponzi scheme in the banking history that is being taught in universities is what happened in 2019 in Lebanon through the central banks. And if any country would to be adapting a Bitcoin standard, regardless in the Middle East or in Europe or in the West, that would be a huge disadvantage for the governments, and they would be perceiving it as a threat. This is why Saylor and the best sales spokesman of Bitcoin try to work on the tech aspect, the store of value aspect, not to get Bitcoin attacked from that angle. I think Bitcoin today is associated with liberalism, and the less liberal the country is, the more likely Bitcoin would be defended or attacked in that sense. But frankly, the Middle East has been opening up throughout this decade. At least this decade, we've been witnessing open-mindedness for a lot of countries in the Middle East that we never imagined it would happen. Like basic human rights haven't, like, we always wondered if we will be like, we'll have the same rights as the West as humans. Lebanon always been the most open-minded country, but I'm talking about the rest of the countries where they were less liberal. Today, businesses are opening up. Today, expats are looking to work in the Middle East, to live in the Middle East, to be based in the Middle East. So that's maybe the last decade. In 2022, liberalism is increasing. It's just that the government wants to make sure that everything should stay in control. Okay. And that would be it.
I'm really glad you caught me up on that, because you can't, when we say the Middle East and North Africa, we have to talk about a geographical region, because culturally, I remember first time I went to Beirut. I went from Cairo to Beirut. I've had 2 culture shocks in my life. The first one was when I went to an American high school. The second one was when I went to Beirut, because I was expecting something like Cairo. And you go to Hamra, it's nothing like Cairo. I felt like I landed in the set of Baywatch meets 90210 or something. It was just out of this world for me. It's like, I've never experienced the Middle East like this. And I was talking to someone on the plane, and he, we were saying that you go overseas, someone will tell you that they're Lebanese. Inside Lebanon, no one will tell you they're Lebanese. They're Druze, they're Shia, they're Sunni. It's, that's the way Lebanon is still represented. I think 17 or 18 different factions represented in the parliament. So no, thanks for catching me up on that, because it is such a diverse place. And it's funny, this only just occurred to me as we've been talking, but in all the stuff that I've been listening to about Bitcoin, and this is an analogy I use, is you talk about the pyramids to describe the blockchain. Every block in the blockchain is like a block in the pyramid. And we talk about the value of math. And I've explained this to people where math is the world's truly universal language. We could be speaking in Arabic. Most of our audience wouldn't hear us. But if we put math on a screen, pretty much every country in the world, every person in the world will know that mathematical equation. All these are born in the Middle East. Algebra is born in the Middle East. The pyramids, everything that we use to describe Bitcoin, almost everything is actually born in the Middle East, the cradle of civilization. So I'm kind of like, how is it that the Middle East is not just grasping this like El Salvador? And this brings into, you guys mentioned this before, Saudi Arabia, the petrodollar system. You guys brought that up. So I think with El Salvador adopting a Bitcoin standard, America and the WTO, IMF, the Bretton Woods institutions basically said, you guys do this, you're going to be cut off from international funding. And El Salvador president just said, we don't give a fuck. He actually responded in the tweet to that. Now, obviously, the Middle East does not have that pleasure because it's a much bigger institution. They're tied to the petrodollar system from the 1970s. Do you think there's that fear amongst people that, hang on, if we adopt Bitcoin standards, we are becoming enemy number one to the institutions at hand? We're putting a target on ourselves. Is that relevant in any way?
I don't think so. I think today it's not about Bitcoin. It's about the dollar. Today it's like the biggest Middle Eastern company is Aramco.
Saudi Arabia's petroleum industry. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have like. Accepting Bitcoin as a Bitcoin standard, again, is different than encouraging or like accepting Bitcoin as a store of value or as a property for governments. Depends which way they would take. But I don't think it would be perceived from that angle. Today, there's so much let's talk about the present specifically. The whole world is looking at the dollar as an escape from the fiat currencies that are collapsing. In Lebanon, in Argentina, in Venezuela, or in Syria, whenever there is any economic or social turmoil or like a crisis, citizens would go directly to exchange their local currency that is devaluing to the dollar, which is like still the hardest fiat money out of the rest of the fiat monies. Now, what would the Middle Eastern businesses do if they have like $1 billion in profits from their business or in liquidity? Would they keep them in USD with all the recession coming and the stagflation coming and the inflation coming? Or they would be investing somewhere else? If they would be, them to invest in Bitcoin, that is still it's a new territory, unexplored territory. Today, for the petrodollar, you need $3 trillion a day liquidity to transact for oil within the Middle East. Okay. No, you don't. You barely have $370 billion today on Bitcoin. So it's a combination of factors. I think today the dollar is still governing in the Middle East, and today the petrodollar has two conditions: the oil to be priced in dollar versus U.S. military protection. That was the deal. It wasn't only pricing it in dollars. The return was protection from the states. That was the deal. Things are changing. Geopolitical dynamics are changing. The Middle East is no longer 100% reliant on the U.S. anymore. There are quite interesting things happening, and they keep us focused on COVID and all the mainstream media topics without us checking what's happening. But there are really interesting things happening behind the scenes that are against the petrodollar. Interest, like the Middle East is showing interest in other currencies when it comes to the oil and gas transactions. There are a lot of swapping happening in the UAE and Oman when it comes to oil. When it comes to weaponry, military alliances, and suppliers supplying the Middle East that are coming from places, I wonder if it was okay back in petrodollars, Bretton Woods agreement back then. So I think we're going to see very exciting differences or changes happening in the coming decade.
And yeah, what we've seen in the last 10 years is phenomenal. Just Iran now transacting with China and Russia, where China set up its own gold standard. So they're looking at getting off of the petrodollar system. The U.S. naval fleet just moving out of most of the world. And this is one thing we saw is a drawback of naval fleet. And I think, the Sixth Fleet based out of Bahrain, that's the last main one standing. And yeah, for what Sooly was talking about, it's worth reading Confessions of an Economic Hitman. He goes into detail about the how the 1974 oil crisis, petrol crisis, and the deal that America set up with the Kingdom of Saud then. Yeah, amazing read, that one. Yeah, the petrodollar industry, to me, that will be the big flippening. When they decide we no longer want to use petrodollars, or we are adding Bitcoin as an option. To me, that's when we'll see Bitcoin as officially become a global reserve currency. That I think will be the first big key player to go, this makes sense. We don't need to hold US dollars anymore to transact in commodities. We can do it in Bitcoin. But your point about liquidity is something I actually had not pondered. I'm going to dive into that.
There are three factors. And I was listening to this energy doctor talk about this particular point. To add a currency to use in oil transactions, it needs to have three conditions. It needs to have enough liquidity. It should have low volatility, and it should have complete acceptability from OPEC as a total. So liquidity might be okay, but volatility will still be an issue to use Bitcoin.
We say that, but look at the US dollar, the pound, and everything going on in Forex markets right now.
Yeah, true. Like Nike today dropped 18%, or yesterday, the first time since 2001. And but still, volatility decreases over time, but we're talking about a long time now.
Yeah. So what are you guys excited about in Bitcoin? Not particularly just in the Middle East, but what is it you guys are working on? What is it you're seeing on your horizon that you're excited about in Bitcoin coming up?
I heard that Taro is on the way. I think Taro would bring a lot of innovation to Bitcoin. I'm not sure how technically it works. Taro is a protocol developed by Lightning Labs, and it allows for assets and tokens, stable coins to be issued on top of Bitcoin. That's what I heard, and it uses Taproot, the new update. And I think in general, stable coins are really needed, especially in the Middle East. And if we can find a way to build wallets that have Bitcoin and stable coins only, that would be amazing. Right now, the most amazing wallets are Bitcoin only wallets. Multi-coin wallets are disaster in terms of security and privacy, and also user experience. They're very bad, and you need to connect to Tron or wherever to use USDT. But if you have Lightning, Bitcoin, USDT or something like that, that would be amazing. And I think that will bring a lot of adoption, a lot of Bitcoin adoption to the Middle East. Right now, what we're doing, we're trying to build a Lightning community, a community of people who run the Lightning protocol, and that can connect with other people in the Middle East, maybe also help people bootstrap their Lightning store. That's one of our future projects. We want to teach people how from A to Z, how they can launch a website and list their services or products and then sell them for sats. And because the problem with Bitcoin right now in the Middle East is that you can't tell a Middle Eastern person to just buy Bitcoin, just save in Bitcoin, because they don't have any money to save. Like most people, if we're talking about like people in Lebanon and Syria and the Sudan and Egypt, it's like they're barely, making it till the end of the month. And so saving in Bitcoin unfortunately is not a scalable message. If you want to convince people or something, they need to earn Bitcoin. If we can find a way to bootstrap Lightning circular economy, that would be amazing. That would be like the ultimate project that could help the Middle East. Basically, we have a lot of divide everywhere in the Middle East, everywhere, and so there's no invention, there's no ideology, there's no religion or anything that can unite people in the Middle East if the economic situation is really bad. And building Lightning, I think that's the only way to cool down the conflicts everywhere, I think.
There's conflict in the Middle East, you don't say. Yeah, I actually agree very much with this, because, and this is where recently I've gone to, if you fix the money, fix the world. I believe there's a lot of truth in that. And my background in but my background in the aid was to focus on poverty. And that is the root cause of our problems, is if people are unable to feed themselves, then you're going to have problems. So very much, you're echoing a lot of what I'm feeling. Sorry, Sooly, please. What about you?
What I'm excited about, I don't want to seem very toxic, but I do believe that I've been repeating this on all podcasts when they ask me this, just like people learn either by being intellectually curious or through pain. And today in 2022, despite everything happening in the world, the understanding money has been at its best since humans discovered money, in my opinion. There are more transparency thanks to these communication channels. There are so much awareness about what is money. We're still very early, but there's still a lot to be done, yes. But I think we're entering a fiat collapse, whereby small countries, emerging markets will be collapsing if they don't have serious source of income that is reliable. And when people start to lose their own life savings, they're going to start looking for a store of value. When they look for a store of value, they look for apartments, they look for lands. But what if they don't have enough money to buy land or buy an apartment? So they start looking for Rolexes, for bags. This is all what I've witnessed, like inflation in Lebanon, inflation in Angola and other places. The same trend happening. And then you have capital controls, and then the people start hearing that there are other ways. What are the other ways? And Bitcoin is a way. And this is when Bitcoin adoption and learning about Bitcoin and using Bitcoin for your own freedom, for your family freedom, for your life savings would happen. I'm excited to see how the adoption is going to accelerate in the coming few years to come. It's going to be we're going to be facing tough winters, as the energy ministers have been saying in Europe, but it's going to be all over the world. Everyone is pricing in inflation coming, but rare are the people that are pricing in the stagflation that might be coming, the recession that might be coming for a couple of years. There are like this nice graph that was, I don't know, on Twitter today. I saw it. I shared it with on Telegram. Like they've put the history of all bear markets since 1945. And post-inflation, you have a pause before the crash. And we haven't paused yet. This is if history is to be repeated. And what I'm working on, frankly, I've been super busy these days, but I'm trying to contribute to any group of Bitcoiners trying to make something, from translating content to podcast contribution to orange pilling. On a personal level, I'm down the mining rabbit hole this month. I think it's time to build. It's time to see if you have a low energy bill. Let's start mining. Let's connect. I'd love to learn more.
Our recent episode was actually with the CEO of a new mining company, and we talked about that in detail. So
nice.
We've been going down that way as well. Yeah,
cool.
Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure for me personally, not just talking about Bitcoin, but catching up with my ashab from the Middle East, because it was part of my culture was the Middle East, and I'm keen to get back there and get back to my roots, and it'd be fascinating to combine traveling the Middle East again and talking to people about Bitcoin. So it's thank you. It's been a real pleasure for me. So alf shukran.
Afwan, alf shukr. Likewise, man.
Thank you, Faris. Likewise.
Thanks for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share so we can spread this educational content to others like yourself. Visit bitcoinbasics.help.
Disclaimer. Any content provided by CoinCompass is for educational and informational purposes only and is not investment, legal, tax, or any other professional advice. A qualified professional should be consulted before making any financial decisions. CoinCompass will at times recommend certain products, services, and technologies, but these are opinions based upon our own or podcast guests' experience and not endorsements. We take no liability for out-of-date or inaccurate information, software bugs, manufacturing errors, technology misuse, or issues involving third parties. Visit coincompass.com for more information, and please contact us.